In today's episode of the Photo Nerds podcast, we actually talk some photography, including who our photography inspirations are and could photography make it big on TV?
Can you flip it so I can see myself? No.
Should we buy a jingle?
Narcissist.
It's on, is it?
Should we buy a jingle?
He wants to see himself.
I've looked up, the definition of narcissism to see if I have, and I've looked up the definition of a psychopath to see if I'm one of those as well. And I'm not fitting the mould for all.
No, I've looked up because people say like you make a YouTube channel all about yourself. And people call you a narcissist.
Yeah.
And it's nowhere near.
No.
Like the actual definition of a narcissist, there's like 10 things, I think. That you've got to hit all of them to be a narcissist.
Yeah.
And there's,
All right, okay.
there's some
Not just one of them.
No, there's some.
I've
so
been called a narcissist in the past, but never a narcissist.
There's some pretty unpleasant things on the list.
Yeah.
Oh, is
So
there?
you could say that you've got narcissistic tendencies, but to be a full-blown narcissist, there's a list of pretty nasty things.
Apparently, one of
Google
the
it?
tendencies is people like you, isn't it? Or is that psychopath?
I don't know.
but-
Oh no, that's it. Psychopath is a trend with psychopaths is that they're really popular people. Yeah.
Well, Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy, who was really, really popular. Who was it? Somebody famous who said that they were almost picked up by Ted Bundy. But what wasn't some pop star or something?
Really?
I'm going to according to Google, a narcissist, a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves.
Does it say AKA Gary Goff?
Yeah.
I'm only joking.
I don't know. I think I've got enough self-loathing to make that not me.
Self-loathing.
So let me kick things off. Right, I did a poll on my YouTube community page the other week, and the question I posed was, "What is your post-processing application of choice?"
Saw it.
Because I've done a few videos now where I've tried to explore a few of them. I did Capture One. I did a video call with where I compared Lightroom Classic, Lightroom CC, Capture One, and On One, because quite a lot of people have talked to me about On One. I got a load of blowback for it, because you always do with these things. Loads of people telling me, well, I use Affinity, I use Luminar. So I just thought, and you obviously use Camera Raw and Photoshop, don't you? Mm-hmm. So I did a poll the other day, but you can only add 5 things on the YouTube polls.
Is the comment or terminology "you're on one"? Is that a Yorkshire saying, or is it a Manx saying, a Manchester saying?
Oh, you're on one.
You're really on one tonight, today, which means you're in a mood.
Yeah.
Do you understand that saying?
Yeah, I do.
You're on one.
Yeah, you on one. Yeah.
Right. So maybe it's a universal term. Sorry. So
No,
carry on.
so the list I put up was the choices were Lightroom Classic or CC. So that was all one.
Yep.
Affinity Photo, Capture One, On One, or Camera Raw and Photoshop. I had over 1,000 people voted. So it's a decent sample.
Yeah.
76% Lightroom Classic and CC. Now every time I've done a video about it, I've had a suspicion that it's the silent majority that are still using Lightroom.
Yeah.
And this kind of proves that. And then Affinity Photo 4%.
Yeah.
9% using Capture One. 2% using On One, which is a lot lower actually than I suspected, because a lot of people have talked to me about that. Camera Raw and Photoshop 8%. So that's Capture One and Camera Raw quite similar. Quite a few people in the comments mentioned Luminar. So that was
Okay.
I doubt it's a higher percentage, but there's also Darktable? Have you come across that one?
Never heard of
I think that's a free one actually.
You heard of it, Gary?
It's like open source.
No.
I think. I just thought that was quite interesting
So,
because
out of the poll, which can be slanted a little bit, because if people subscribe to you and they know you're primarily a Lightroom user, they may have gravitated. But 76%.
do you think I have that much influence?
I do, mate. I do.
They're just voting to
not
please
that
me.
much influence. It's that you use Lightroom, so they like you, so they subscribe to you. But 760 people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
760 people out of 1,000 using Lightroom. 8 people. Was it 8 people? No,
Well, they'd be
8 percentage,
80 people were using
Photoshop.
Raw.
Yeah.
I think most of those people that use Lightroom will probably use Photoshop as well. That's Lightroom and Photoshop. I'm only guessing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
maybe.
I use Lightroom and I occasionally use Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
Rather than
probably
the way
a
I-
familiar.
Yeah, I mean, an image I used today, I would class myself as a Lightroom Classic user,
Yeah.
although I'm getting more into CC.
Yeah.
But then, like today, I took an image into Photoshop to clone some cows out.
Yes.
'Cause I hate those cows.
You hate cows? What's wrong with cows?
Should have kept the cows in and cloned
Do
that
you-
damn
do
tree
you-
out.
Sheep. Sheep's my bugbear.
It was that because I mean, most people probably that follow me in any way, shape, or form now know that I'm scared of cows.
Mm.
And it was when I was with Charlie Waite, and we couldn't park right where we needed to be, so I sort of dropped him off and then walked back, and he'd already got up onto the limestone pavement near Ribblehead Viaduct, and then I realised I was going to have to walk through this field of cows to get to where Charlie was. So it's like I want to go and stand with Charlie quite badly, but I've got to walk through these field of cows with calves as well, so when they're most agitated.
You're right.
I was
to be.
myself. We're trying not to show it.
Have you got a general fear of cows, or is it walking through a field of cows that worries you?
My fear is being trampled to death by a cow.
Right. Well, I think your fear is warranted because they can be really, really vicious, can't they? And there's lots of people killed.
It happened to my best mate, one of my best mate's cousins down south. She was walking through a field with cows, and she was walking her dog, and the dog agitated them.
Yeah.
And one of them charged her.
Sure.
And trampled her, and she was in hospital, like really seriously injured.
Oh, wow.
And spent weeks in hospital from her injuries, getting trampled by this cow. A female cow, wasn't a bull or anything.
Life-changing injuries or death.
Yeah.
Because they don't give up. They'll trample all over you.
And what a farmer got killed not so long ago by his own cattle. But anyway, I was telling this story to my father-in-law who grew up on a farm, and he was saying that when dogs will spook cows like that, and he said that what you should have done in that situation is let go of the dog.
And
So
they've
she kept hold of the lead.
Yeah.
and they've gone after the dog.
So they've gone after the dog and ends up trampling her. And she said you should have just let go of the dog, and they would have then chased the dog. But the dog is fast enough
to get away.
to get away. Yeah.
It's a bit like the analogy of people who jump in after dogs in the water, isn't it? And they drown, the dog gets out.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking though is I've texted Jan to invite you up for a barbecue, and you're welcome as well, Gary. But we live in a rural location, and you were up last week, weren't you, Gary? Did you see the cows in the field next door?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And so I was asking you because I didn't want to invite you up with the cows looking over at you.
If I'm separated from the cow, then I'm okay. I feel like that about wildlife generally, though. I have no need whatsoever to have any interaction with animals.
Really?
Yeah, just I
Have you got cats or dogs at home?
No.
No, because
I might get a cat because I think
Yeah.
it's good for your kids and stuff. But I don't like dogs. I'm allergic to them as well.
Yeah.
But I have no
Not all dogs.
no feeling or desire to interact with animals, and I find it bizarre that so many people want to. I get it because I think I feel this a bit about zoos. I don't like zoos,
Right.
but I think there's a lot to gain from children going to zoos to see those animals. You know what I mean? So but that's just me.
I couldn't envisage a house without animals in it because I've always had a cat or a dog. Well, I've not always had dogs.
So have we until recently.
Yeah.
Not all dogs. If you have an allergy, not all dogs.
I'm a lot better now. Actually, I've got some new asthma
you?
medication. I'm a lot better.
But our dogs are non-shedding.
Yeah, Scooby was non-shedding, so the
I think it's their breath.
The Asthmatic Society.
You just don't like dogs.
No, genuinely, I think it's the
Yeah.
saliva in their
is it?
breath that causes the problem. Yeah.
My friend is highly allergic to cats, and he's been my childhood friend since he was a little kid, since he was 8. And the thing with cats, if they know you don't like them, they make a beeline for you.
You don't have to kiss them, you know.
What, the dogs?
No, you said you have an allergy to
goes
their
into
saliva.
the-
You don't.
yeah,
I'm just trying to think. What?
What, saliva? It's not spit the dog, it's not...
Yeah. Why do you think you buy a dog?
When they're panting, it's like
Teddy don't walk around saying, "Oh, you're allergic."
I do get it. There's been a couple of times though when I've been out on my own somewhere in the landscape doing some photography, and like just whether it's dark or I'm walking down a mountain in the dark or something, and it's like just that irrational fear starts entering your mind that you've got to kind of control. I was thinking if I had a dog with me now, I would really appreciate that company. Do you know what I mean?
The
Like,
problem is though, dogs pick up on everything, so they'll look at something in the darkness of the night. They picked up on it. They know it's there, but you don't, and then that's what.
yeah, but you just go, what is it? What is it? What is it? What have you seen?
When the dog cowers round behind you. You know you've got a problem.
So when you say things like, what's that?
Yeah.
The ears, don't.
Yeah.
What is it? What's it?
Yeah.
When I went out with when I did that collaboration with Morten Hilmer, because he used to be in the special forces in Denmark and patrolled Greenland with the dogs, and he was telling me a story about where they when they camped each night, they'd have their tent set up, and they're in Greenland in the Arctic, obviously. So there's the threat of polar bears.
Sure.
So they'd figure out which way the wind was blowing. They'd then have
The dog's upwind.
the dogs. Yeah. So they'd have the dogs upwind or downwind, whichever way. So that they'd have the dogs downwind. So they'd have whichever way the wind was blowing, they'd have the dogs in front of them in the wind.
No, it's probably
No,
the
other way.
opposite.
The opposite way.
The
Yeah.
opposite way. It's upwind.
So the dogs, if it was at that side of the tent, the dogs would see the polar bears come in.
Yeah.
And they'd bark. If it was downwind, the smell would be blown past the tent to the dogs.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They'd then smell it and bark. So they use the dogs. Like,
Yeah, as an alarm.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the middle of the night.
It was really interesting because I mentioned on one of my vlogs that the dogs kept getting in the way of the shot, and somebody said it's because they class you as pack leader, and the pack leader in wolves always stays at the back to protect the dogs in front. Didn't know that.
Oh,
You
right.
learn something new every day.
Yeah, you do.
You do.
Every day's a school day.
Every day's a school day.
As they say.
I mean, you mentioned Charlie Waite. Charlie Waite. Where is he from, Charlie, originally? Do you know?
Oh, down south somewhere.
He's
Like, it's all the
he's
same
not got
down there,
Yorkshire
isn't it?
accent, but you've been out with him recently, which we touched on in the last podcast, but we didn't go into any detail.
No.
Was it a good day out?
It was brilliant, yeah. Like,
Because-
he's just such a nice guy, first and foremost. Like, I think that's what a lot of his clients say when they go on workshops with him. He's just such a nice guy.
We don't know. We've not met him because
Never
we
met
didn't
him.
have
I
an
mean, the
invite.
thing is the reason I brought him up is we have talked in the past maybe, but we can touch on it a bit more. Who influences you from a photography point of view? Now, in my job, I see a lot of sports personalities, and I'm not particularly starstruck, but I am starstruck when it comes to golfers because my other passion was golf. So if I ever meet a professional golfer, that makes me starstruck.
Yeah.
But I mean, Charlie Waite is an influencer from a photography point of view, particularly landscape photography you've been doing for a while. And out of all those traditional, say so-called landscape photography, Charlie sits right up there with Ansel Adams for me because I just love the way that he plays with light, as we were talking about off camera, and also form. So what was it? Number one, was he? Were you starstruck meeting him? And number two, has he got that status that he's got for me, with you personally?
Yes to the second question.
Yeah.
I wasn't starstruck yesterday because it's like
We've known him for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I've met him. The first time I met him, I was a little bit, I guess. Like, but he's such a nice guy that he immediately puts you at ease. Like he.
And before you met him, did he influence your work?
Yeah,
or did you look at his work?
because I've always had an interest in different ways. So the two people, Joe Cornish was probably my first.
Yeah.
Beyond Ansel Adams,
Yeah.
Joe Cornish was my first sort of inspiration because his patch is my patch. Like
Yeah, of course.
He
Was it Rosemary Topping?
yeah, and I mean that's where I grew up, like a couple of miles away from there. So he was always a name in photography around where I lived and grew up.
And I think he influenced a lot of people in that locale who are
absolutely.
landscape togs these days, isn't he?
Yeah. So I was telling Charlie a story yesterday that I'd done a video recently. It's when I was testing out one of the cameras. I'd gone up to Rosemary Topping and I didn't actually talk through it on the vlog, but I went up there. It'd been snowing, and then some sunlight just came out right at the end of the day, struck this tree beautifully, Rosemary Topping in the background, and so I thought, oh, that looks great. I'm going to shoot that. So I got composed. Thought, this is great. I'm really happy with this. And I'd finished the video, so I was just photographing by this point. Took the picture, and was really happy with it. Ended up printing it. I couldn't quite get the print right for some reason. That's just my lack of skill with printing, I think. But anyway, I was happy with the picture, really happy with it. And then about 2 weeks later, I was looking to go somewhere else. So I got my maps out, and one of them happened to be the North Yorkshire one. So got hold of this map, and I look at the picture on the front of it. That's my picture.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what on earth is that doing in front of there? And then I realised that it's actually Joe Cornish's picture on the front of the map.
Yeah.
For the Ordnance Survey.
And you'd got almost the exact same
And
composition.
and I was thinking that's amazing, like because it's and I, in some way, must have been subconsciously affected by that picture that I've seen before. That's then affected my behaviour completely. It wasn't copying because I had absolutely no thought of it in my mind at the time of shooting, but it must have affected me subconsciously in some way.
Yeah.
But I was kind of just thought that. I just thought that's brilliant. Like that, I now can't do anything with that image. I don't think I wouldn't feel that image is gone for me now because I wouldn't really print it or share it or sell it or because it's Joe Cornish's image. But for me, I don't want to do that. It's like that's just a personal thing.
That happens a lot in life, doesn't it? I mean, I've done it with vlogs. I've set up a vlog and I've thought, right, on Saturday I'm going to go and do this, and then somebody puts one out on the Friday that's the same, or I put out content that I think is unique, and then I go and watch somebody else's from 6 months before. And I've seen that video before, and they basically talked about what I've talked about with no intent on copying them at all.
No, it's fine. Like, that's one of the things Charlie was saying to me yesterday is that when him and Joe are not worried about people going out and copying them. It doesn't even enter their mind because particularly Charlie, like both of them, to be fair, they've spent a big part of their career trying to help out other photographers, which is exactly what we're doing, isn't it, with our YouTube channels and. They've been doing that their whole careers with running workshops and even creating Landscape Photographer of the Year. It's about a celebration of photography.
Of course.
And I know it does get criticism, particularly around the judging process. But his intentions are 100% true.
And genuine.
Yeah, absolutely 100% genuine in terms of just creating a competition to reward people. And when you look at what's happened to the winners of that competition,
it's moved them on.
It's changed their life,
Absolutely.
Hasn't it?
Yeah, there's always going to be the haters, isn't there? Yeah. So they're not precious about disclosing where they're shooting or anything like that. Then Charlie and Coach
no, not to me anyway. I mean, I don't know what they do publicly, but one of the things I did say to him about Landscape Photographer of the Year is I said I think, and we filmed this as well, so it's probably gone out on my channel by the time I'm saying this, but I said you should make it more transparent about how the judging process works, like show people how that works. What do you do? Like, let us see.
It's very personable, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but let us see that. Like, if you've got a room of 10 judges, put a camera in there.
Yeah,
show them critiquing that work and discussing that work.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
That'd be cool to watch, wouldn't it? Like, to get the sort of thoughts and feelings and the differences that these.
It's very difficult though because it's personable. It's down. I mean, if you were judging a competition, you're judging it on your standards. In other words, what you like. You can't judge it on anything else but what you like.
There is some like, I think when you're critiquing someone's work or you're talking about art generally, there is some objectiveness there, isn't there? Like it's not purely subjective. So there is some objective stuff there around the technical aspects of it. And there is. I think so anyway. Like there is some technical aspects that are objective.
Yeah, but if Joe Cornish, for instance, if he didn't like the way everybody shoots seascapes using a 10-stop filter and the sea is now an ice skating rink, then he's gonna. Doesn't matter how good the picture is, doesn't matter how good the lighting is, doesn't matter what the clouds are like. At the end of the day, that's not for me. And that fantastic picture's cast aside. It's not a bad picture.
No. But wouldn't you love to see that as a discussion? And then,
absolutely.
And then you might have another photographer who's a judge saying and disagreeing with him and seeing that interaction over a particular piece of work.
Yes,
I think would be fascinating.
I think it'd be a brilliant.
Because you're also not seeing. Sorry to cut you off there, Paul.
Right.
But you're also not seeing if that is Joe Cornish's feeling about a particular piece of work. He's not rubbishing that piece of work, and that's what we do when we critique a piece of work. We're not saying that's rubbish. We're just saying I like this about it. I might not like this about it, but it's not. It's still a great image, and we always say that, don't we?
You mentioned maybe it's not in this podcast, but a previous one, Sky Arts Master of Photography. That's really, really interesting because they've got different photographers on, but a lot of the guest photographers, they critique the work in such a way that it is constructive criticism. It's real constructive criticism because they're talking about the technique of the shot with other good photogrophers. But have you ever watched it, Gary?
Yeah, I can't watch it.
Have you seen the?
I can't watch it.
The Italian guy.
No, I can't.
It really makes me laugh.
No, it's like going to an art studio.
Right.
I look at a picture. I don't want anybody to tell me what's good and what's not good.
Yeah.
I look at it. I like it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's black. It's very black and white for me.
Yeah.
It is very, very simple. Now, as long as technically it's right.
I'm pretty sure we've
lighting-wise
discussed
it's
this
right.
before, though.
We have.
I want, like I've said before, I want to hear your thoughts. So, say if we're stood next to each other, I want to know what you like about it.
You see,
I won't tell you what I like.
No, but
That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay to have that open discussion. I just don't want somebody judging my thoughts.
Yeah, all right.
That's what I don't like. That Sky Arts program, I think, is despicable. I don't think that's doing any. No, personally,
nobody could ever accuse you of standing on the fence, could they? So Sky Arts program is
personally,
despicable.
I don't think that's doing any good for the majority of people who want to go out and be a photographer.
Oh, it's not.
I don't think that's doing any good whatsoever.
It's not for that. I don't think.
It's about this outlandish person probably. Walk into a room and say, right, okay, take a nice picture in there. Now, all of a sudden, there might be nice pictures you can take in any sort of room, but the one that wins it is usually the person who decided, I had this great idea to strip off completely naked and show my ass cheeks off with 6 other naked models because it'll make that corner look much more interesting.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? It's like...
I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating what people get out of pictures and what people don't. I mean, I'll give you a really good example. Is you brought that picture in because Joe Cornish has a Polaroid thing on the back.
That was Charlie,
on the back of his Hasselblad. Yeah, you can show it. And all of us, actually, because it was an actual picture, got excited of tactically holding it and feeling it.
I'll tell you about it. When I was out with Charlie yesterday, he brought his Hasselblad gear. And he has a Polaroid back for it. So you set up the Hasselblad camera, take the normal back off it. Then he puts the Polaroid back on it. Takes this little Polaroid like this.
Yep.
It's just a classic like Polaroid looking picture for those that are listening on the podcast with the composition of a tree that we were shooting. And he's done that for years. In a very similar fashion to
that was the norm, by the way. That's how you used to take it.
And in a very similar. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In a very similar fashion to how we do with our phones or the back of the digital screen, and it's fantastic.
Was his Hasselblad camera then a digital camera? Did it have a digital back on it?
He does have a digital back, but he didn't have it with him yesterday.
Right.
He had his film. Yeah.
All right, okay.
It's interesting that Polaroid stopped making Polaroid film back in 2008. So people have stocked up on Polaroid film, and it was actually off the back of Master of Photography, which I watched on playback yesterday, and then another one called Instant Highs. And what basically has happened, and I couldn't watch the whole film because it was too arty-farty for me.
Yeah.
But basically, what's happened is a group of enthusiasts have bought the factory from Polaroid, the last remaining factory, to continue making Polaroid stuff.
What's your thoughts on that Sky Arts program?
On the Master of Photography, I think it's great for entertainment value because I like cameras and I like the personalities. So have you watched it? Have you seen the Italian guy who became the Italian photographer and he became famous because he did United Colours? Well, he didn't become famous for that, but it was one of his famous campaigns, United Colours of Benetton, back in the 1990s. And he reminds me of the character from Up. You ever watched the film Up?
Yeah.
You know, the old man?
Yeah.
He just reminds me of him, and he's dead grumpy all the time. And he makes me laugh because he basically rubbishes people's work in an instant. And he's just funny. And that's why I watch it, for entertainment value. But you're not going to glean anything from what people are saying other than the guys who they bring in as guests. So when they bring in guys as guests, number one, it shows for me how fortuitous certain photographers can get. So yesterday, that's the last one, they had a portrait photographer on, and they said they don't know how he likes his subjects, but it's a close-in cropped vision of somebody's face, and all it looks like to me is the shots that you used to get when you used to get your passport photographs done,
really?
But a bit better lit. And he had Angela Merkel, and they're all just headshots, straightforward, straight-on headshots. Angela Merkel and Obama and George Clooney, but he did something a little bit different. But he was very much influenced as when he was telling the guys what to do with their images, of cropping everything out and just going for that single head-on portrait shot. So he was a little bit different. I disagreed with some of the things he said, and it was interesting to see that he was a world-renowned photographer for basically shooting mugshots of people's faces. and that's great. But other people come in, and it does. When you get somebody in that's looking for that artistic, because it's a given that they should be able to shoot technically quite well. Or mind you, there are people on there that technically aren't very good.
Well, Annie Leibovitz is like that, isn't she? She sort of says, like, I'm not a technical photographer. And she's so big now that she's got full production crews with her who are operating the cameras, essentially. So
passing her a camera.
Yeah, well, her part as the photographer, the way she sees photography is quite different, because it's kind of, she is interacting with the model, or she's setting the scene up, but in terms of actually doing the stuff with the camera, she's not actually really doing that. It's the whole everything else around.
That's more the art form.
Yeah,
it's not the art form of taking pictures. It's the art form, and the camera is capturing the art form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that's where
it's almost like a director in a movie.
Yeah.
That's essentially what she's doing on this big grand scale with this whole production crew, and essentially like the stills photography version of a cinematographer who actually does the photography in a film. She's got people like that doing it for her stills.
But it's fascinating. I mean, you talk like about Charlie. One thing I like about him is he's technically brilliant and he's artistically brilliant.
Yeah.
His understanding, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and it'd be really interesting if you can ever get that out of him. Whether he just sees it from a subconscious level, but his use of form for shooting and his use of colour and light for his shots, and how he composes his shots. Some very, very simple compositions, but compositions that you wouldn't immediately think of at all.
One of the things we were talking about yesterday, it was quite flat light where we were, and he was describing the composition with the flat light, and that wasn't really doing anything for him. And then I said, well, what if you've travelled somewhere and you're in that situation and the light isn't very good, what are you going to do? He said, I'll pack up and go home. And that amazed me. But then I said, if you travelled halfway across the world to capture that image or to look for that image, would you still do that? I said, are you that patient that you might come back 10 years later to get that same composition in good light? And he was just like, well, he said, you've handed me this one, but my surname is Waite.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
But he's going for that iconic shot.
Yeah,
he knows what he wants.
And I end up shooting the tree still. Yeah, and I really like the image I've taken.
And I'd be exactly the same as you, but I would take the picture of this tree in flat light, and I've seen it. It's a long exposure picture, and it's lovely.
It isn't actually. It's not.
Is it not?
No.
Is it not?
No. Oh, that sky, no.
Oh, I didn't see it.
But I was going to ask that very same question. Oh God. So I was going to ask the very same question.
Like Paul.
Let's just turn my bloody phone to silent.
Have a look at the picture.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Right.
While Gary's ruining the...
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's seamless.
So that picture you took with Charlie Waite yesterday, you're saying that he didn't take that same picture because he didn't think the light was right enough. No. I've seen your picture, and I thought...
It's called Light on Land, though, so when he takes pictures, if you watch some of the stuff he does that he's done by video...
Yeah, but there's light on land. I'm trying to get my head around his thought process.
Yeah, it's probably easier to watch the video, but he was... Because he's so eloquently spoken, but he was saying that he likes the relationship that the light produces between shadows and highlights and...
So he wants clouds with gaps in them, with light streaking through.
Yeah, and more so light on the land.
Yeah,
it's called light. It's called Light on Land. And,
I don't know if it's the video that you're talking about. There's a video where he's got a tree in the Lake District, and he's waiting until that break in the cloud comes, and that one tree is lit up, and the rest is in shadow.
Oh yeah. I get that.
What actually happened with this one is one of the things he was talking about, and it's a tree near Ribblehead Viaduct. He was talking about that there's not much separation between the tree in the background, but it then started raining. He took cover by a wall. I stayed in the rain and shot my image, vlogged through it while Charlie Waite stood behind me, which was a bizarre experience. Took the shot, but because the rain had come over, it went over our heads towards the viaduct, and it actually then produced some separation and sort of masked the mountains in the background a little bit, which provided a bit more separation between the tree and the background, which worked for me.
So were those clouds moving quite quick then?
I mean, it's rain.
Right.
Yeah. It was, yeah. I mean, it was a fascinating experience spending
Yeah.
that time with him, and it was absolutely brilliant. And his thought process is just incredible to
Yeah.
listen to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at one of his pictures here, which is a row of garages with the sea as a backdrop, and it's just so clever. I just love his stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason I mentioned Ansel Adams is because I love black and white, and so
Yeah.
he was my go-to as a kid.
Well, funny enough, it was
Yeah.
what Charlie mentioned, that Ansel Adams was his inspiration
Yeah.
as well.
Because we were talking about black and white stuff like you guys were, and that his use of lights and darks,
Yeah.
and you can see how it's influenced Charlie's work
Yeah.
far better than some
Absolutely,
mere
yeah.
mortal like me, because his expertise on using light is awesome. So he was an inspiration for Charlie, was he? Ansel?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I liked about spending time with him. Is he's just he's just a really nice guy. I mean, he supported me a lot up to now, and he's just really down to earth. There's no big ego there. Like I sort of told him the story about when we first got together, and when Paul and I went out, I sort of mentioned that I didn't think I would fit in with people like Charlie Waite and other people
Yeah,
of that kind of
we were
level.
talking about it off camera on the vlog that we did in the
Yeah.
Lake District.
And then literally about 5 minutes later, I got an email from the manager and director at Light and Land
Yeah.
saying that Charlie wanted to meet me
Yeah.
and potentially work with me.
I was waiting for my email. It's a bit like your drone.
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
Every day I check my email.
And I was sort of saying, like, you have these kind of, you look at someone of that kind of person in any industry, and you kind of idolize them or have some sort of jealousy, maybe for some people. I'm just in awe of them almost.
I remember the conversation that we were having because it was at Brothers Water, and you said something like, "Oh, they wouldn't be interested in the likes of me," and I said,
Yeah.
"Somebody like you, they would be interested in." And literally, we travelled from Brothers Water to Ullswater, didn't we? It's only about 3 miles, and he said, "Guess you'll never guess what."
But
I've got an email.
What's so genuine about him is he's interested in everybody.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like how he still feels obliged after all these years to answer emails about people asking about camera settings and
Genuine guy, isn't he?
yeah. I mean, he stays up. I think he said it was stressing him out because he stays up all night. He'll get an email at 12 o'clock at night from someone in the US.
He didn't reply to my email, by the way. You can tell him that from me. Seriously. I asked him, well, when I was doing the shows in here, I sent him a really nice email. Never replied to it.
Maybe his PA cut you out.
Possibly. Yeah.
But the fact that he's interacting with everybody else but Gary Goff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad
No,
thing.
but I'm a great admirer of his work as well.
I mean, you mentioned Joe was a great admirer of your work. I suppose I'm a bit cliche mentioning Ansel Adams and
Other way around.
yeah.
I
Yes.
like Joe's work.
And I think vice versa as well.
I'm not sure.
We're going to have that comment. You're going to get
I'm
an
not
email.
sure how much he's seen.
You're going to get an email from him, I bet you. But what about you? What's your admirers? Maybe not even landscape photography point of view. Is there anybody that inspired or inspires you to go out and shoot besides me?
Besides you? No.
You just do it for yourself?
He didn't like his trip to the zoo with you.
No.
Oh, all day. Oh, brilliant.
he
Even when we sat down, I bought him a burger and chips.
He bought me a burger and chips and I ate his burger.
My burger.
He
Seriously.
wasn't happy. I didn't realise which one was his and mine, so I took a big bite out of it.
Oh.
He looked at it, he said, "That's my burger." And I says to him, "I'm sorry." He says, "Well, could you have got a smaller bite?" And he said, "You've eaten half of it."
Yeah. I think it's because you stressed that I don't want cheese on my cheeseburger. And I
No.
thought, a bit bizarre, really
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
So I got a cheeseburger and he sat down and started munching my cheeseburger.
He was having an awful day at the zoo, and that cheeseburger was the best thing in his life at that point.
I had a great day at the zoo. I really enjoyed it, but it peed it
No,
down
well,
all
me you
day,
didn't.
didn't it? I did. But I'm no what's it?
You had a
affinity
face
for
on you
animals.
like thunder all day.
I'll let you into a secret. I didn't feel very well that day.
Oh, good.
Cheeseburger.
Yeah, it was
that's what
brilliant.
it was.
No, it's
My face always belies what my wife says it all the time. She says, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm absolutely fine." She says, "You've got a face like thunder." I said, "I can't help what I look like." Because if I smile, I look like Wallace out of Wallace and Gromit. You know what I mean?
I like it when he smiles.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, mate.
I don't have any I admire so many people, but I didn't get into landscape photography because I read books or followed people. I was a professional photographer at the time, and if anything, I bought magazines, yes, I bought books, but it's more to do with general lighting and more to do, of all things, with wedding photography, because I still love my wedding photography even now. I do. And there are some amazing wedding photographers out there. And so if I was to rattle off names of people who I admire as a photographer, they'd be wedding photographers, and not landscape photographers. Not saying for 1 minute that I don't like the likes of Ansel Adams, because I do, because absolutely fantastic. I mean, we've said it before on a podcast, how amazing or how difficult it must have been. I mean, imagine Ansel Adams. At the time, landscape photography didn't exist.
Didn't he get paid by Yosemite National Park, though? Didn't they pay him to do it?
I'm not sure of the history. But can you imagine if you sat down and thought, right, I want to start a genre of photography that no one's interested in.
It rings a bell.
No one does. And then you don't have books to look at. You don't have the internet to look at. You can't Google where to go.
What amazes me is what you said. You know,
photographers' guides didn't exist.
When I first got into photography, I never even thought that there was a genre called landscape photography. I didn't read books and think that's what I'd like to do. Yeah. I picked up a camera and went around shooting at things. And I had an old cine camera that went shooting at things as well. And it wasn't until I could combine two of the things that I enjoy, which is getting out into the landscape and then shooting the landscape. Because this is pre-internet days, and some of the young people won't realise. So the only way that I could go and find out these things out was most probably by accident at the time, Gary. I'd have gone to the library and gone to the photography section for a reference book to tell me how to take shots and to learn the technical aspect. And then
the magazines were huge as well, weren't they?
They were, yeah. And then, well, I couldn't afford magazines. I'm talking about like when I was like 11, 12.
You got Smiths and you don't have to pay for it.
Well, no, your dad's come with you. Got a red car. Hey, go and get us.
I'm not talking about nicking it. You just stand there and read it.
Read it. Okay, I'll let you off. And so then you'd see somebody's book in there and you'd pick it up and then you'd see how good their shots were.
But Ansel Adams wasn't even before the internet. It was before landscape photography books existed.
Of course. I mean, people were taking landscape.
Absolutely. I mean, phenomenal.
People were taking landscape photography shots because, but they were doing it with oils and canvas, weren't they? What does photography mean? It's writing with light, isn't it?
Is it painting?
Writing with light, I think I might be wrong. Graphy, I think it's writing. Might be wrong. Because of lithography, I think it's writing with light. I got that from Master of Photography. The Italian bloke said it.
Yeah. So that'll be his interpretation of what he thinks photography is.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't have a problem, by the way, for anybody that actually watches that program and
thinks
they can draw.
You find it despicable.
No. Me personally, I don't think anybody can gain from it. But if you watch it and you enjoy it, then hey, that's fine. It's not a problem. Maybe you're into your more arty stuff as opposed to just walking up a mountain.
I find any cop show on TV despicable.
I bet you do. I'm the same when it comes to anything that's like Holby City or Casualty. It just drives you nuts.
What's that cop show that's on now where everybody goes mental about it and they lights up social media and everybody's trying to predict.
My daughter watches it.
Oh, I know the one you
Line
mean.
of Call of Duty.
Line of Duty.
Yeah, Line of Duty.
My daughter watches it.
I watched about 20 seconds of that, the first series of that one. I just had to get out of there.
Yeah.
It was awful.
The biggest problem for me is those programs would work if they cut the program 2 minutes short from the end. Yeah. What I mean is all the harassment that the police have to put up with various things, and then at the end of it, somebody's been let off with a warning, or there wasn't enough evidence. The guy's driving a stolen car. How can there not be enough evidence to say that he's the one that's actually stolen the car?
He got £60 fine and 3 points on his license.
It really is frustrating because you've got these police interceptors and a lot of it's actually local to us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you see it and it drives my daughter mad. She goes, how come he's driven halfway across Yorkshire, almost killed 40 people and he gets like a suspended sentence?
Yeah.
And then somebody else who's not done anything particularly wrong gets whacked with a 10-year...
Yeah.
What's it? It seems to be fraud's a big one.
Or an 18-month ban on his license, and then all of a sudden...
But he hasn't got a license
Yeah, but
anyway.
that's correct. He hasn't got a license, or he's already undergoing a ban on his license
Yeah.
where he got stopped 6 months ago. It's like, where is that ever going to stop?
It's not going to stop, and now they've just brought out a thing, haven't they, and they're not going to now sentence anybody to sentences less than 6 months. So anybody who traditionally got a less than 6 month sentence won't get one anymore.
Part of the problem is that dangerous driving is a really difficult offence to prove. Like,
Well, I never understood. You're a copper, right? I mean, maybe you say, well, or X, but why haven't we got the facility that a police car has a cannon on the front of it? And if somebody is driving a cannon is driving erratically, that it fires out something like a taser to electrically immobilise the vehicle. Just
I think the problem is you're in America where they nudge, they're pushing these cars off the road.
Yeah.
Like
Sideswipe it. Yeah.
I mean, there's absolutely no way we could do that.
We've got the T-Pack, haven't we?
Yeah, but
Stingers.
Yeah.
But you've got one of the things is that you've got to be so careful of is that when you do anything like that, if you nudge a car or something and it goes flying across and
Kills.
crashes with somebody else and kills, it's all on you.
Of course.
You're the one as the police driver doing the dangerous driving.
I'm loving what they're doing in London at the moment with the mopeds. It cracks me up laughing. The police cars are just going after mopeds and ramming them.
Really?
Yeah.
When I did my advanced driving, one of the first things you do when you go on the course is you sit down and have a classroom lesson, and literally the first thing they say to you is that doing police driving is the quickest way for a cop to go to jail.
Yes. Really?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to be so careful.
So you find Master of Photography despicable. My big bugbear, he's looking at me, look at his face. My big bugbear watching any of these television programs is, have you seen it where the program would actually only be 10 minutes long if it wasn't for some stupid celebrity to come on and give you their view of what he thinks? Yeah.
That's like every episode of the One Show, isn't it? Where they do
Yeah.
I don't watch the One Show.
What do you think? There's a place for photography on TV?
Yeah.
No? Like,
Absolutely,
or an expansion of photography.
I
on TV?
do, and I think even more so. And I'm really surprised that it hasn't. I mean, but funnily enough, if you now look on Sky and you go to catch up on Sky Arts, there is a separate genre called photography now.
Right.
So it is getting more and more popular.
You can't believe it's not out there to the masses. If you think how many football shows there are, because a lot of people play football, how many fishing shows there are, because people fish and golf and so on and so forth, how many people potentially are photographers? How many people own cameras and love going out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
But and that's interesting. But if you look at the views for a big landscape vlogger that may be 50,000 views per video once a week, that's not going to sell airtime, is it? Whereas Casey Neistat, we're allowed to mention him, can jump around acting daft and just show his every day and get 4 or 5 million views. It's what sells airtime. And it sells airtime for us as landscape photographers. But I'd be interested to know what the viewing figures
I think the problem with TV is that an interest or a hobby or a piece of a factual thing alone does not make a TV program, does it?
It doesn't. It's got to be the personality behind it.
So if you imagine like one of the nature programs. Nature programs used to be on BBC Two, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were factual, and they told you a lot about the animal. They've now moved on to BBC One. David Attenborough's gone with them, obviously, but they now are much less factual, and they anthropomorphise, if that's how you say it, the animals to some extent a lot of the time, and build these big stories about the interaction between mother and child animal,
they're building pathos and drama bit into it.
And that's what makes a TV show, though, isn't it? It's always the story that counts.
Sure,
that makes anything good. And anything in life, it's anything, isn't it? Even just banter in a pub, you're telling stories to each other, aren't you? It's not like it just doesn't. A factual thing alone doesn't make a TV show, and I think that's part of the problem with photography a lot of the time, because it works on YouTube because it's either educational or it's a review, which is never going to be on TV. Yeah. And it's not until you get into some area around the kind of vlogs that we create that you get into the kind of entertainment side of it.
Yeah.
So how do you expand? I think that's the key. That would be the key to it, is to expand what we do on a vlog into something a bit bigger with more production, some level of adventure maybe, I don't know. But
I mean, it's interesting to talk about this because there's a guy called Terry Abrams. Have you seen his stuff? He does Lake District. well, I'm not going to say pre-YouTube because he's been doing it about 5 or 6 years, but he's done a year in the life of Helvellyn and stuff like that, and his stuff's absolutely amazing.
Right.
And he's been showcasing this stuff in books and on video, where you could buy the videos, and also in some local cinemas around the Lake District. His stuff was pre the popular landscape photography vloggers, let's put it that way. And I'm sure that he's tried to sell that to mainstream media, and it's not been picked up. And his stuff knocks anything that I've seen on YouTube into a cocked hat, because he spent a whole year producing it himself. Yeah. And he's a photographer and a cinematographer.
I mean, it's where the increased production value would be beneficial, wouldn't it? And
but his production value, if you ever go and have a look at him, and if you ever look at his stuff, it looks like he's got 15, 20 people with him. He is absolutely brilliant.
I bought years and years ago a DVD called Masters of Photography.
Yeah.
Masters of Wedding Photography is what the actual title is.
Right.
Now, how that works for me and the reason why I love that, obviously I'm into my wedding photography, but if you watch that, you've got 5 or 6 different professional photographers, and you've got cameras following them around. So their 15-minute part of that DVD is you're watching them work. It's like almost a fly-on-the-wall documentary of watching Adam and watching yourself, Paul, going out, vlogging, working, and seeing how you work, Joe Cornish works, and so on and so forth, and seeing how they work. And then you're drawing from that. Now, to me, that's much better than the Masters of Photography show on Sky Arts. It's just a reality TV program.
Of course it is.
With some person giving you their interpretation of why a bare bum or boobs in a shot works or doesn't work. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you watch somebody that will just take this mundane group of girls that are all giddy because they're getting married, and all of a sudden he'll interact with them and get from it will just appear this most amazing wedding picture. Now, to me, that's art.
You see,
that's artistic.
I think that from what you're saying, that would a fly on the wall documentary like that would be very interesting, wouldn't it? You could make a series out of following the wedding photographer, couldn't you?
Yeah, but that works. But that sort of, it's almost like it's disposable, trashy TV. Again, this is only my interpretation. Don't please start having a go. That's my interpretation of it. You might like it. Yeah. You might like reality shows. Lots of people do. That's why there's so many of them on the TV.
It's disposable trash television.
I just think it'd be. I think it would just be fascinating to say if you could put 30 grand into producing a pilot for a photography show. I'd just love to see what that looks like. I'd love to see what you could do with that. Rather than me holding a camera in my hand, what could you do if you give 30 grand to somebody to say, here's 30 grand for
That's an interesting conversation.
Here's a 30 grand bucket to produce a 30-minute pilot for a landscape photography program.
Do you think that you need to spend 30 grand? So I'm just putting it out to you because it could be an interesting one for a podcast.
It's a rough estimate. That's a rough amount of money that you normally get for a pilot.
If we went out and you were the star of the show and he was sound man and I was cameraman, and we did the different shots and worked it out there, is it law of diminishing returns? Would you not get a lot? Do you think you get a lot more polished?
I don't know, because like you see, you're talking. If you're
I'm
talking
not a
about getting
cameraman.
If you're talking about like, say, a 5-day trek across, name your place. And you've got more than you've got 2 or 3 on-screen talents. You've got a sound person. You've got a couple of camera people. You've got a couple of support crew feeding you and stuff. It builds really quickly, doesn't it? The cost builds really quickly.
Absolutely,
I think 30 grand is and then to edit it. 30 grand for a 5-day production.
Oh yeah, you get
to produce half an hour.
Yeah.
I think like you're looking around that.
Oh, if not more. Yeah. I'm just thinking how much. Let's say if we did it for a day and we went out and we filmed you and I was on the camera and he was on the sound and we did it that way and we thought about it prior to going out and shooting it. How much more that would look from a production value point of view.
I think it would increase it a lot. So when I was out with Charlie yesterday, it was a lot of stress for me, like thinking about trying to get us both on camera.
Here, Charlie, while you're there, just hold that camera for me, pal.
He to be fair, he was very accommodating. He was saying, whatever you need, Adam, whatever you need, Adam. Yeah. But it was hard for me to produce all that.
Sure.
Get a photo taken, get him on camera, get myself on camera with him.
Yeah.
If we'd had a guy there or a girl holding a camera, mic us both up, just walking around, just
Well, you should have asked us.
filming the interaction.
You should have asked us.
Yeah, next time maybe.
Maybe.
Getting that into, but it would have been so much better. The production value would have gone, like for me, that would have gone through the
Yeah,
roof. Like, so I'm not worrying about doing everything. I think but if you want to produce that kind of content on a regular basis, you're essentially employing somebody, aren't you? And it so quickly becomes so expensive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you start needing people.
I'm really surprised that there are not certain people that haven't done that already.
Yeah, but there are
And I
TV
had a
programs
cameraman.
out there about fishing.
Yeah.
How can you possibly make that entertaining for a viewer? And yet, there's probably millions of people that watch it, millions of people who enjoy it. Fishing, I think, is the
I've thought
biggest
about it, 'cause
participated sport in the world.
It's one of the
Fishing.
It's one of the most popular sports.
So at the
in
end of the
world.
day, that works.
Because it's food. That's why I think. Because
Food.
yeah.
How do they throw them back in?
Oh, what? No.
Yeah, but
I
ultimately,
hate catching
it's this.
returns.
Course fishing.
But ultimately, it's this at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
With some guy taking a picture
Well, isn't
with a
it?
fish.
Isn't it the most popular sport in the world or something?
Yes, I
crazy?
think it's the most.
Fishing?
I believe it's the most participated sport in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, a bloke talking about fishing. My God, who's into it?
Isn't there
I
on
know a lot
Sky
of
a
people
fishing
who are
channel?
into fishing.
If not,
there is. There's definitely programs because I've watched the odd one and they are interesting actually.
and that's fishing. So can you imagine if they can make a TV program all about fishing? Then surely to God they can make a TV program
I'd
about.
love to see it.
Yeah,
What a
about we
fishing
do.
program?
No.
I tell you what, let's go out. I got a rod at home and we'll do a
I'm
fishing
not going.
program.
No, I wouldn't go
Do I
either.
get to eat it at the end?
No,
I think if you're
Yeah.
fishing for food, it's okay. Catch and return. I've got no time for that.
Ooh, my friend was a great believer in that. He used to
Catch and
fly
kill,
fish,
you'd prefer that?
salmon fish,
Yeah, absolutely. If you're doing it for food.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Because we need that, don't we?
hunting for food.
Yeah, I've.
We're going off on one now.
Well, fish is better for you.
Let's just get a gun then and go out hunting.
One of the best days I ever had is with my dad as a kid was when we went out. We were in Morocco and we went out on a fishing ship, fishing trawler, and line caught our food, and then we cooked it on the boat. And I was a bit young then, but I had a glass of wine, and it was brilliant. We brought it up from the
Yeah,
depths.
I
We
get that.
killed it, cooked it, and ate it. It was great. But. Maybe are we doing it for time? Because I was just about to say, just maybe to finish off and put him on the spot. You remember the lavender fields? And we said we'll find out whether or not Adam would be interested in coming. But yeah,
Well, you should know that if you've watched our podcast
Did you watch the
when
last
you
one?
weren't with us.
He hadn't watched it, has he? He's listened
test him.
Listened to 10 minutes of
Were
it.
you talking about going to the lavender fields in France?
That's it.
Then you want me to come with
Yeah.
you? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be up for that.
Awesome. That's
Oh,
I don't know when.
God,
it.
that's so
I don't know
passionate.
when. Yeah.
You have no choice. There's a time when the lavender fields are out and just
In
before,
July.
and they're in July, just
This
before
July?
they're cropped. This July.
I don't think
Probably
we'll
not.
manage this
Okay.
July. Will we manage this July?
Let's discuss off camera.
If we're going to do it this July, let me know straight away, and then I'll book it in.
No, it's this July.
It's-
I'm going.
A couple of weeks.
I'm going.
When?
Well, no, June's just started,
Yes.
so it'll be middle.
Right,
towards
we
the
will
end of
discuss it
July.
off camera because I'm defo up for that.
There's a massive expense though, just for one picture or two pictures.
Yeah, that's my problem.
But great to have.
Well, it's not massive
your
expense with 3
portfolio.
people.
Should
All right,
we
let's
sign
go.
off? Thank
Yeah.
you very much. See
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.